We have already understand and listened the story about Israel, Palestine's conflict, the relationship between Israel and Hamas, who was the brains behind the war operation. And also we had already covered up the story of Mohammed Deif, a shadowy Hamas commander who masterminded the attack against Israel. But before all this, have you ever wondered, how does an Israel prime minister become a prime minister? From where his journey starts? Interesting, right? Let's rephrase his journey in this story, and let's understand everything in short. So our tale starts from Israel's pacemaker named Benjamin, Bibi, Netanyahu. He was born in Tel Aviv, Israel, on October 21, 1949, to secure Jewish parents. He and his two brothers grew up in Jerusalem until 1963, when their father accepted a college teaching position in Philadelphia. When the family moved to the United States, Netanyahu began using the English spelling of his first name, Benjamin. When Arab-Israeli tensions heated in the spring of 1967, he took his high school senior exams early and sped to Israel for the Six-Day War, in which Israel took control of scattered former Arab lands. By August, Netanyahu was old enough to fight. He joined an elite Israeli commando unit and in 1968 took part in an attack on 13 unoccupied airplanes in Beirut, Lebanon. He rose to the rank of captain and recruited his brothers to the unit. After helping rescue 100 hijacked airplane passengers in Tel Aviv in 1972, he left the army to enroll at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, in Boston. A year later, Netanyahu returned to the Israeli military, fighting in the Sinai Peninsula and the Golan Heights in the Yom Kippur War. Afterward, he returned to MIT, earning a bachelor's degree in architecture and a master's degree in business management. In 1976, he began working for a Boston consulting firm. That July, his older brother, Jonathan Netanyahu, was killed while leading a rescue of Israeli hostages at Entebbe, Uganda. Netanyahu commemorated his brother by founding the Jonathan Institute, which sponsored international conferences on terrorism. Still in Boston, Netanyahu became marketing manager for a furniture retailer in 1979 and published his brother's letters in 1981. Through the Jonathan Institute, he met Moshe Aarons and other Likud Party leaders. Aarons became Israeli ambassador to the United States in 1982 and recruited Netanyahu as deputy chief of mission. After 2 years, Netanyahu left the embassy to become Israel's permanent representative to the United Nations, 1984, 88. In 1988, he won election to the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, and was appointed deputy foreign minister. He served as Israeli spokesperson to the foreign press in 1990, won during the Persian Gulf War and the Middle East peace negotiations in Madrid, Spain. Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir made Netanyahu his deputy minister in 1991. Later, after elections in 1992, ousted the Likud party from the governing coalition. Shamir retired from party leadership. Likud party members elected Netanyahu their leader in 1993. He denounced Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin's land for a peace agreement with Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat that September. Emotions escalated around the country when a right-wing Israeli assassinated Rabin in November 1995. Rabin's widow and others blamed Netanyahu for letting passions get out of control. His sagging popularity revived after a series of suicide bombings, left Israelis feeling unsafe. In May 1996, Netanyahu was elected prime minister by a margin of less than 1%. He promised to observe the peace agreements but delayed their implementation. The governing Labour Party entered the 1996 elections with weakened electoral appeal following Yitzhak Rabin's assassination. In November 1995, and a series of suicide bombings by Muslim militants early in 1996, Netanyahu eked out a victory margin of about 1% over Prime Minister Shimon Peres in the elections of May 29, 1996, the first in which the Prime Minister was directly elected. Netanyahu became the youngest person ever to serve as Israel's Prime Minister when he formed a government on June 18. In September 1996, to open an ancient tunnel near Al-Aqsa Mosque angered Palestinians and sparked intense fighting. Netanyahu then reversed his earlier opposition to the 1993 peace accords and in 1997 agreed to withdraw troops from most of the West Bank town of Hebron. In 1998, Netanyahu and Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat participated in peace talks that resulted in the memorandum, the terms of which included placing as much as 40% of the West Bank under Palestinian control. Then, new elections scheduled for 1999. Apart from this, Benjamin had 3 wives. One is Sarah Netanyahu. By profession, she is an educational and career psychologist. She is the spouse of the Prime Minister of Israel, holding the role for her 3rd time. Also from Netanyahu, having 2 children, Yaru and Avner Netanyahu and Avner Netanyahu. Fleur Kate is the ex-wife of Benjamin Netanyahu, an American philanthropist, and the 3rd one is Miriam Haran, who is an Israeli business person who has been at the head of 5 different companies and is chairman for White Center for Sustainable Development and chairman of Israel Resource Efficiency Center. Also from her Benjamin having 1 daughter named Noah Netanyahu. Netanyahu was succeeded as head of Likud in 1999 by Ariel Sharon, but remained a popular figure in the party. When early elections were called in 2001, Netanyahu, who had resigned his seat in the Knesset and thus was ineligible to run for prime minister, unsuccessfully challenged Sharon for leadership of the party. In Sharon's government, Netanyahu served as foreign minister 2002-03 and finance minister 2003-05. In 2005, Sharon left Likud and formed a centrist party, Kadima. Netanyahu was subsequently elected leader of Likud and was the party's unsuccessful prime ministerial candidate for the 2006 Knesset elections, in which Likud secured only 12 seats to Kadima's 29. After the 2009 election, Netanyahu formed a coalition government with other right-wing parties and was sworn in as prime minister for a 2nd time. He went on to lead Likud to victory in the 2013 and 2015 elections. A period of political deadlock ensued after 3 consecutive elections in 2019 and 2020, failed to produce a government, which was solved after a coalition rotation agreement was reached between Netanyahu and centrist Blue and White Alliance's Benny Gantz. The coalition collapsed in December 2020 before the rotation could take place, and a new election was held in March 2021. In his penultimate government, Netanyahu led Israel's response to the COVID-19 pandemic and the 2021 Israel-Palestine crisis. In June 2021, after Naftali Bennett formed a government with Yair Lapid, Netanyahu was removed from the premiership, becoming opposition leader for the 3rd time, before returning as prime minister again after the 2022 election. Netanyahu made his closeness to Donald Trump, a personal friend since the 1980s, central to his political appeal in Israel from 2016 during Trump's presidency. The United States recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights, and brokered the Abraham Accords, a series of normalization agreements between Israel and various Arab states. Netanyahu has faced international criticism over his decades long policy as Prime Minister of expanding Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank, deemed illegal under international law. In 2019, Netanyahu was indicted on charges of breach of trust, bribery, and fraud following a 3-year investigation, due to which he relinquished all his ministry posts other than the prime minister position.